Welcome to part 3 of Module 7, exam review. Just looking at this page, I know I haven't left myself enough space, so I'm going to have to do a little finagling to get all the work on here, but hopefully you'll be able to follow it and it'll make sense. So looking at this first one, x divided by 5 equals 12. The way we undo division with multiplication, so I'm going to multiply both sides by 5, which is a 5 over 1. Okay, so on the left, 5 cancels with 5. I'm going to go ahead and write the answer up here. We get x equals. Here, 5 times 12 is 60. X equals 60. That's the answer we're looking for. Second one here, we have 2.8t, which is 2.8 times t, which means if we're trying to get rid of that 2.8, we're going to have to divide that undoing multiplication here. Okay, so I'm going to go ahead and write this up here. 2.8 divided by 2.8 is just t equals. Now, when I do this negative divided by positive, before I even do the division, I put a negative sign because I know it's going to be negative, and those sign errors are things that generally stymie most students. So, when we divide our 19.6 divided by 2.8, we're going to get 7, but because it's negative divided by positive, that is going to be a negative 7. So that is the answer we're looking for on this one. So number 19, very similar. Negative 38.3y is negative 38.3 times y. Undo this with division, so divide by negative 38.3, divide by negative 38.3, and we'll go ahead and write the answer to that one up here. Here the 38.3's cancel, and we get y. On the other side, we have 497.9 divided by negative 38.5, 3, excuse me, so we have 497.9 divided by negative 38.3. We're going to get 13, so we get negative 13 is the answer to that one. Okay, so looking at this next one here, this one being a little bit different in the sense that we want to combine like terms on the individual sides before we go further. So notice, on this side, no like terms. So I'm going to go ahead and write this up here. We have our 10 minus 7x equals. On the right-hand side, 4x minus 5x is a negative x, and then we have our negative 32. That carries over as well. So now we have numbers and letters on both sides. We want to get all the numbers on one side, the letters on the other. So I'm going to do this by getting the variables to the right, because I don't like negative variables. And the negative 7, if we add 7 x's to both sides, we get cancellation here. We get our 10 to carry down. Over here, negative 1 plus 7 is 6. We have 6x minus 32. Now we need to get our numbers on the left, so add 32 to both sides. That gives us 42 equals 6x divided by 6. And this gives us x equals 7. So that right there is the answer to that problem. So moving on to number 21, kind of similar to number 20 in the sense that we want to combine like terms on the individual sides before we go further. So we have 9x and 4x. That's going to give us, and we'll go ahead and work up here, 13x. And then we have our minus 5 equals, on this side, 2x minus 5x, negative 3x. And then we have our plus 139. Now, one thing that we can do is this. If we want to get our variables to one side and our numbers to the other side, we can kind of do this in one step as well. So here, if I want to get my numbers to the left, I can add 3x. Similarly, if I'm getting my variables to the left, I want to get the numbers to the right, so we need to get rid of minus 5 right here, so we add 5. And so here, our 13 plus 3 is 16x. Our 5's cancel. Here, our 3x's cancel. We get 149. So the last thing to do here is divide by 16. And here we get cancellation. 144 divided by 16 is 9. So we get x equals 9, and that's the answer here. Okay, so now we're going to get into a little bit meatier problems. This next one here, we have a lot of fractions going on. So one thing that we want to take a look at is this. We could get common denominators and add these together and work in fraction land, but what I'm going to do is I'm going to multiply through by the lowest common denominator to clear the fractions. So when I do this, the lowest common denominator between 5 and 7 is 35. So I multiply everything by 35, which is a 35 over 1. So notice, when it comes in here, we get 35, 30, 35 over 5. plus when it distributes here, I'm not going to multiply the 35 times the 6. I'm just going to say it's 35 times 6 over 5 equals, the 35 comes in over here, 35 over 7. And then the 35, and there's an r attached with that, sorry about that, the r right there. And then when we distribute this last one, I'm not multiplying the 35 by the 8. So this is a 3, that looks a little bit better now, over 7. Because what we're going to notice here is this. We're going to get some cancellation. So here, 35 goes into 5 7 times. So that's really a 7. So I'll go ahead and write that up here. We get 7. Here, 5, and there's the r attached with that as well. Sorry about that. So we have that 7r. So here the 5 goes into 35 7 times, leaving us a 1 here. 7 times 6 is 42. So we have 7r plus 42 equals, here 7 goes into 35 5 times, so we have a 5r. And then finally 7 goes into 35 5 times, leaving me a 1. 5 times 8 is 40, so plus 40. So notice, by multiplying through by this lowest common denominator, 35, we get rid of all of these fractions, and we're left with this problem, which is substantially easier to solve. So now, hopefully I'm going to move over on this page over here, and we can solve the rest of this problem. Now, we'll go back to blue. So what we have is, we have 7r plus 42 equals 5r plus 40. So I want to get all my variables on one side and the numbers on the other. I'm going to get my variables to the left, so I'm subtracting 5r to get rid of this 5r. And to get rid of this positive 42, I'm subtracting 42 as well. Okay, so 7r minus 5r, that's 2r's. We subtracted those out, we're good. The 42's cancel, the 5r's cancel, and then 42 minus 2 is negative 2. To isolate the r, we had to divide both sides by 2, and we get r equals negative 1, and that right there is the answer to the problem. So let me move that out of the way and get back to the page that we want to be on. Okay, so this next one here, similar to this last one, notice we have some fractions, and we could move those around, get common, denominators and solve it like we normally would. But I want to work at this on this clear the fractions, because in the instructions it says clear the fractions, and it really is going to be beneficial in the future. Now, 5y is 5y over 1, and 3y is 3y over 1. So when we think about the lowest common denominator between 2, 1, and 8, it's 8. So we multiply everything by 8 over 1. So we distribute it in here. That's going to give us 8 over 2. We distribute the 8 in here. Well, 8 times 5 is 40, so we have 40y over 1 equals, distributing in here, 8 times 3y, that's 24y over 1. And then finally distributing the 8 in here, minus 8 over 8. That's it. And notice once again, we can get simplification. 2 goes into 8 4 times, so that's really a 4. So we can think of this as 4. 40y divided by 1 is, well, 40y, so plus 40y. Here, 24y divided by 1 is 24y, and then finally 8 divided by 8 is negative 1. So now we're solving this problem right here. So let's move over again, get back into the red. We want to get the numbers on one side and the variables on the other, so let's get the variables to the left. So I'm going to subtract 24y minus 24y, and if I'm doing that, I need to get the numbers on the right, so I also need to get rid of the 4, so I'm subtracting 4. So I'll go ahead and write the result of that. Our 4's cancel. 40y minus 24y is 16y. 24y's cancel. And negative 1 minus 4 is negative 5. Divide by 16. And we get y equals negative 5/16. Put the 1 there. And that's the answer to that one right there. So hopefully that made a little bit of sense to you. Now these last two, we can clear the decimals, but generally because we can work with calculators, it's not totally necessary. In fact, I find that students feel pretty good with decimals. So we're going to go ahead and just distribute as we normally would and solve these as we would a normal problem. So I'm going to write this down here. Now, when I distribute my 0.7 into here and here, 0.7 times 5 is 3.5, so 3.5x. 0.7 times 15 is 10.5. Now remember that this negative is like a negative 1 here, so we have our 2.9, but when our negative distributes in here, we get a negative x, when our negative distributes in there, we get a negative 3. So then we want to combine like terms. On the left side, we don't have any. You know, we have our 3x, or 3.5x plus 10.5. Here, 2.9 minus 3 is negative 0.1 minus x. We still have that. So I'm going to get my x's on the left and my numbers on the right. So I'm going to add x, and subtract 10.5. Okay, so 3.5 plus 1 is 4.5x. Our 10s, 0.5s cancel. Negative 0.1 minus 10.5 is negative 10.6. Our x's cancel. Last thing to do, divide by 4.5. Get cancellation here. And then we never really leave fractions as decimals divided by decimals. So we can move the decimal place there, but we have to do that one over here. So this is negative 106 over 45. And that doesn't really simplify. There's no common factors in the numerator and denominator. So we can kind of leave it like that. Now you could turn it into a decimal, but when you do that, 106 divided by 45 is 2.35 repeating. It's kind of a nasty decimal, so we can leave it like this and it's exact, and that's just as good. So finish up with this number 25. Now here we're distributing a bunch of stuff. We're going to distribute the 1.1 here and here, not to the negative 8.1 because it's not in parentheses. We're going to distribute the 4 here and here. And so we're going to do that, and we're going to hopefully write it, and I'm going to move this over a little bit if I can. There we go. Do that so I have a little bit more space over here. So we do this. So distribution of that negative that 1.1 times x, that's 1.1x. 1.1 times 4.9, well, 4.9 times 1.1 is 5.39, so plus 5.39, then minus our 8.1 equals distribution here. 4 times x is 4x. 4 times 2 is plus 8. And then finally our minus 11. So we've distributed to get rid of the grouping symbols. The next thing we want to do here is combine like terms. So we have our 1.1x. 5.43 minus 8.1 is going to give us negative 2.76. This is equal to here 4x, and then we have 8 minus 11, which is negative 3. So now I'm going to move my x's to the right to keep them positive, so negative 1.1x, subtracting that off is going to cancel our x's here. And then adding 3. That's going to do that. So now what we have going on is this. We get cancellation here. 3 minus 2.76 is going to give us... Okay, there's a small error. This should be a 1 right here. I don't know how that got there. That's a 4 right there, so that's that. So when we do the subtraction here, our negative 2.71 plus 3 is going to give us 0.29. Sorry about that. So you want to make sure that your subtraction's good there. Here, 4 minus 1.1 is going to be 2.9x. The 3's cancel, so we get 0.29 equals 2.9x. Finally divide by 2.9. And this right here, if we move the decimal over 2, we get 29 divided by 290. Well, that simplifies to 1 over 10. Here we get cancellation, which we could write 1 over 10 as 0.1. Because this is an exact decimal, I'm good with either of those answers, but hopefully that made sense, and we'll see you in the next time.